Since the earliest days of film, music and sound has been one of the most important parts of the movie experience. From the magnificent fanfares of John Williams to the dark tones of Danny Elfman. A picture these days wouldn't be the same without its rightful accompanying track. But how different would it actually be? How much of a film is actually only represented in the soundtrack? To answer this, let's take a look at the movie Interstellar. This film by director Christopher Nolan is about a simple farmer who goes to space to find an alternate home planet for the humans on the now ailing Earth.
It's all you, Doyle.
This being a space movie, Nolan worked closely with the sound designer Richard King and the composer Hans Zimmer to create an atmosphere of grandeur and awe. He especially wanted to stay true to the fact that space is silent. So everything that we hear in space is actually the sounds from inside the spaceship.
Don't!
According to Richard King, he and Nolan wanted to create a realistic atmosphere, as if the sound was recorded on set the day of.
What I hope the audience thinks of the sound, I would hope that they think that the sound was all shot on the days that they shot the movie, and that it's all there. It's much more satisfying to really think you nailed it and put them in that spaceship, and for them to just accept that this is reality.
Everything in the film was designed to sound organic and non-digital, to really push the effect that you are there, in the flesh, with Cooper and his crew. From the launch scene, to the wormhole trip, to the corn rush. Everything is designed to make you feel like you are there, without actually being there. But there's a little bit more than that. The sound isn't only amplifying what is on screen, but showing you what is not. This is seen even more so when they are being buffeted by the giant waves on a distant planet.
The engines are flooded! We're gonna have to shut her down!
We can see the water moving and hitting the ship repeatedly, as well as the actors being thrown back and forth from within the ship. But the effect of stress on the ship is only shown in the soundtrack. The shaking of the metal, the creaking of the parts, all of it worked together to make this scene a truly exhilarating experience. Sound design like this is not exclusive to Interstellar. Tons of popular films create atmospheres through sound, and some have become so iconic that they are almost more well known than the film they are from. Ben Burtt, at times called one of the best sound designers of our age, has worked on some of the biggest films, from Star Wars to Wall-E.
A film such as Star Wars, the soundtrack is completely fabricated in the studio. All of the sound effects you hear in the film are added later. Everything from footsteps to cloth rustle to the handling of props to the sound of vehicles, weapons, aliens, and exploding Death Stars. Those are all things which didn't exist at the time of shooting.
The atmosphere and sound design of a film is just as crucial as a picture in most instances, and when it's used properly, it's incredible. Which brings us to another part of sound and film, a part that isn't always present, but is by far the most noticeable: music. You know what they are. Those grand themes that lock in your mind, bringing with them scenes of majestic dinosaurs.
It's a dinosaur.
Or sharks. Or time-traveling DeLoreans.
What did I tell you? 88 miles per hour!
Film soundtracks give an emotional stylistic depth that film, on its own, would struggle to create.
Murphy still grabbed his car.
Birdman's soundtrack is primarily a long drum solo, giving it a different feel than it would have had if it had a large brassy accompaniment.
Spit it out. You're saying what? What are you saying? You're saying love is absolute. Yes!
Or no sound at all.
The kind of love that I'm talking about, it is absolute.
Because of this, directors and composers carefully craft the soundtrack to not only create the feel of the picture, but also amplify certain scenes and characters within the scene. Careful and precise design was put into the Interstellar soundtrack to make it feel like cold, massive space while still giving an empathetic feel to the characters.
It was very important to me that the music not pay any attention to the genre of the film.
I sat down and I wrote this piece really about what it feels like to be a father and what it feels like to have a son, and I was writing about my son.
When he played me the piece of music which became the basis for the entire score, I thought it was absolutely perfect and captured the emotional qualities of the film that I wanted. And it was at that point that I told them that it was actually a large-scale science fiction film. They really wanted him to use the church organ. And I also made the case very strongly for some feeling of religiosity to it, even though the film isn't religious, but that the organ, the architecture of cathedrals and all the rest, they represent mankind's attempt to portray the mystical or the metaphysical.
As a side note, some people felt that the Interstellar soundtrack was far too loud, to the point where they felt like they didn't need it at all. Nolan and Hans Zimmer defended their stance on the loudness of the soundtrack, saying that they wanted to feel loud, almost as if you were there and you couldn't hear anything else with it. So, that's the thing. How much of the film is actually only represented in the soundtrack? The answer? Most of it. Sound gives us an atmosphere to inhabit, a clearer understanding of what is happening, and, at times, an emotional depth that the picture alone would struggle to create.
New York City, this is how we do things.
No, I'm not saying that the picture isn't needed or that it isn't also a major part of the film. The two, sound and image, work together to create the experiences that we know and love, telling us stories and taking us to places that we've never seen, and in some cases, never will see. Sound is one of the magical pieces of film that can make even the best movie even better. I'm Philip Woods. Thank you.